We're going to have a evaluation here on an interview that was conducted in the great state of Tennessee pertaining to all these controversial people that has all these different opinions about different things. Why this particular interviewer chose to go with the state of Tennessee, I can't answer that question, but she did. Keep in mind, these are the same people that I've been brushing up against for the past 30, 33, 34, 35 years in trying to issue out a message to the people that to this day, I reckon they're still in rejection to. These are the same people that I went and helped this spring whenever a major tornado not only hit Davidson County, which is downtown Nashville, Music City, USA, but outside of Davidson County, going towards Clarksville, I helped neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood towards going up there and doing volunteer work in regards to a tornado that had devastated this area. I just want you to get some sort of a concept about the environment of the type of people that I've been dealing with for 30 something years towards being a messenger, trying to get out my message to the general public, that they are so debatable and so contradictory of each other, you can't get nothing done. And of course, the Bible says that Satan is the author of confusion. I love Tennessee. I love the things about Tennessee pertaining to our hills, our hollers, our canyons, our lakes, our nice roads. I like the Appalachian Mountains. I like Middle Tennessee, the Cumberland Mountains. I like Western Tennessee, being close to the mighty Mississippi. I like it down towards Pickwick, going into the northern parts of Mississippi. I like it pertaining to the Tennessee River. It's a naturist type state. We've got abundant of wildlife, not only deer, but rabbit, squirrel, raccoons. We've got everything that you can think of, including bear, up in eastern Tennessee. Over towards Chattanooga and going up towards the Appalachian Mountains. I've done a lot of research in history pertaining to the Cherokee people. The great teacher that taught the Cherokee people their alphabet, Sequoyah. I've done a great deal of history searching in Nashville, Tennessee, and down below Nashville, Tennessee, where Jack Daniels started his distillery, and George Dickel and a lot of others. So whenever I speak about the Tennesseans, I don't do it lightly. I've been here. I've done that. I've went down that road. I've opened up that door. I've talked to these people. And I just want my viewers to understand that out of the sincerity of how that I feel about the Tennesseans, I love them to death. But at the same time, you can be sincere, but you can be sincerely wrong in your ideology, in the things that you believe. And it's not that they're stupid. It's just that they have been incorrectly taught pertaining to interpreting the Bible the way that the Bible needs to be interpreted, just like interpreting the coronavirus pandemic, just like interpreting other things in regards to the political presidential race that we've all dreadfully went through just within the past few days, just within the past few weeks, pertaining to Donald J. Trump. So as you listen to this, keep in mind, please, that these people mean well. just like the people over in Missouri. They're a lot like the people in Tennessee. A lot of the people in Kentucky are a lot like the people in Tennessee. Some of the people over in Arkansas are a lot like the people in Tennessee. This is the Bible Belt area, but it has become stagnant in regards towards a stalemate to the point that you can't tell them nothing. You can't teach them nothing. You can't enlighten them because they're so dead set in what their grandfather taught them, and they're not going to believe anything any different than what Uncle Joe said about this particular subject. So as you listen to this, keep in mind the narrow-mindedness of certain people that live in Tennessee. Not all the people are the same, but there's enough of them that they have had a substantial effect up onto the windmill ministries that I'm the founder of, going back to 1988.
The coronavirus pandemic is raging through rural parts of the U.S. It is largely Trump country, where there's also resistance to wearing masks. So how do they feel about getting vaccinated? CNN's Ellie Reeve went to Tennessee to find out.
News of imminent vaccines comes just as COVID-19 surges through rural parts of the country, and the political debate is as heated as ever. We wanted to know if the same resistance to masks would happen to the vaccine. So we reached out to Greg Locke, a pastor in conservative Wilson County, Tennessee, who says he has grown his congregation by protesting COVID control measures.
We're not going to close our... Keep in mind, there's 144,000 people in this particular county outside of Davidson County. Davidson County is the center of Tennessee. But keep in mind, these are the people that believe that you can walk around toting a Bible in one hand and a gun in the other. How can you do both whenever God says, thou shalt not kill? I've never dealt with such hard-headed people in my entire life pertaining to religion. And now we're getting into this pertaining to the coronavirus and the election, which just demonstrates how some of them are still being influential towards broadcasting that type of confusion amongst the rest of the Tennesseans.
Church, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of sincere people that are doing their best to put out a vaccine, but that doesn't mean I'm going to take it. I don't believe the government can tell me, when or how I can stick a needle in my arm or my kids' arms. Super government overreach.
Locke says he's moved his services outdoors not to limit the spread of COVID, but to handle all the new people who've come.
Faith over fear. I ain't worried about some fake pandemic. I'm saying the sickness is real. I'm saying the pandemic is not.
I don't understand what you mean when you say pandemic's not real.
Obviously, this guy don't understand what the difference is between a sickness and a pandemic. If you'll study the word pandemic, it means a broad scale of that same sickness. How can this individual sit there and say that the pandemic is not real whenever we have facts happening all over, not just America, but the world, towards people dying of the same disease? It really shows, to some degree, it really shows their ignorance in what that they don't understand, just like being able to properly, I'm going to use the word dissect the Bible correctly. The Word of God says to be able to rightfully divide the Scriptures. Rightfully divide the Scriptures. That means if you can't rightfully divide the Scriptures, you're interpreting the Scriptures incorrectly. If you're interpreting the Scriptures incorrectly, now you have a scenario setting up that Jesus talked about as far as the blind leading the blind. This is the wall of resistance that the Windmill Ministries, the founder of the Windmill Ministries, has been going up against for the past 30-something years of various people that just would not believe in the founder's story. They would not support the founder. They would not get in behind the founder. They did not understand biblical prophecy pertaining to various things that has been predicted to come about in regards to what Jesus taught pertaining to whenever you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, to know that we are at the doors, to know that we are at the end. There's so many people that has been taught incorrectly. Like I said before, it's not that they're stupid to one degree. It's just that they have been taught incorrectly. Kind of like the individual that you're listening to right here. Let's back it up just a little bit. That way we can get the full interview. Because it's really sad whenever you're dealing with people just like this individual right here. You know, he probably means well. He'll tell you about God, and he can probably quote 4, 5, 8, 10, 12, 25 different scriptures. But at the same time, look what he's got on his hip. There you go. Now, how can you do both? If you're a truly believer in Christ and you believe that God is going to protect you, you're contradicting yourself by having to wear a firearm like that, because that's one of God's commandments is thou shalt not kill. They are so upside down in their thinking. It should be looked upon as being a blessing when one dies and not the opposite. But because they have got such close tidings with earthly goods, they think whenever a loved one or a friend or an acquaintance passes away for whatever reason, don't have to necessarily be the coronavirus, they think that it's the worst thing in the world for that person to die. And Jesus taught just the opposite. Jesus taught, he said, to rejoice when they leave the world and to weep whenever they come into the world. They're upside down. They're twisted. Jesus said to rejoice when one perishes here upon to the planet, because the world that they're entering into is better than this world. This is the type of resistance, folks. I'm just letting you know, this is the type of resistance that I've been going up against for the past 30-something years that has caused a hindrance in the Windmill Ministries towards the Windmill Ministries not being as effective as it should have been in bringing forth a utopia or a peace or a revival upon not just the country of the United States, but upon to the planet. They would not give the founder that center stage towards allowing him to be able to be effective. And then they scratch their heads and they wonder, well, where did we go wrong? Where did we go wrong? And then here comes the founder and tells them where they went wrong, and then they turn away from the founder. They won't listen to the founder. They ignore the founder. They act like the founder is just crazier than a lunatic. This is the type of madness that I've been dealing with now for 30-something years, and this year tops all types of, I guess you'd call it chaos, in regards to the coronavirus and the election. Just like the city or the town or the state of Texas bringing forth a lawsuit trying to overthrow the United States election. But yet, no, they'll tell you we support our forefathers' Constitution and what that we're supposed to do and how that we're supposed to go about doing it. They're upside down. They have deserted the trueness of not just the gospel, but they have deserted the trueness of what that they're supposed to be as in regard to that Republican Party towards the Republic. The Republic has certain rules. And once you break those rules, you're no longer playing fairly according to the rules. God has certain ethnics. Once you break those ethnics, in which, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, because I'm not. And I'm trying to better myself every day in regards towards becoming perfect, even as my Heavenly Father, which is in heaven, is perfect. I'm striving every day because I know that I have sinful natures towards doing sinful things. I don't walk around with a gun strapped to my body, scared to death, not knowing if somebody's going to come out of the weeds that's going to try to do something wrong to me, because I have my faith in God. And it doesn't matter if it's a human being, a lion, or a poisonous snake. I have my faith in God and believing that God is going to be there for me and going to take care of me, physically speaking. And if he doesn't take care of me, physically speaking, I have been able to look through the smoke screen to realize maybe it was God's will for me to get bit by that snake. That way I can go ahead and perish and leave this body, and spiritually I can go and live with him in his body, in his domain, up in heaven. People has to wake up. Please listen to this story.
I ain't worried about some fake pandemic. I'm saying the sickness is real. I'm saying the pandemic is not.
I don't understand what you mean when you say pandemic's not real.
Pandemic is not real.
Well, what do you think a pandemic is?
Not COVID-19.
But what do you think
pandemic.
A pandemic is?
I think we've stuck on this pandemic question.
Well, then why can't you answer it?
I did. There's no pandemic. COVID-19 is not a pandemic.
What is a pandemic then?
Not what we're experiencing. I'm 44 years old. We've not had one in my lifetime, so I don't know. And this is not it.
To be clear, a pandemic is a disease that spreads across many countries and affects many people. The World Health Organization declared.
I'm going to re-clarify that. A pandemic is a disease, but it is the same form of disease, just like the bubonic plague, just like Black Death, or other types of pandemics that has struck not just one particular area, but in masses amounts of people. That's what a pandemic is. A pandemic gets carried from person to person, from neighborhood to neighborhood, from state to state, from country to country, and basically can cover over the whole planet. That's the type of pandemic that we're dealing with today pertaining to COVID-19. Because we see the figures, we see the numbers, just like what you're looking at right there on your screen. I hope that my camera can take a view of it, of 292 people, 292,000 people have died in America. Over 250,000 people have died in America over a pandemic. The same type of disease, the same type of fever, the same type of symptoms people are experiencing, not just in Wisconsin, but also in Arkansas. Not just in Arkansas, but in California. Not just in California, but in New York City. That's what a pandemic is. And this guy is saying that the coronavirus is not the pandemic, which to me just proves his ignorance.
Declared COVID-19 a pandemic in March. And experts say about 70% of people need to get the vaccine to control COVID spread.
It's not been tested enough. We don't know what's going to happen with it. Later on, it may help you now, but in the future, it can cause more harm to your body if you get it again.
It's not, this anti-vaccination, it's the devil. It's like, personally, it's a choice.
Some people at the service told us they'd seen Locke on Facebook and liked his message.
Donald Trump won the election by a landslide, and he will be reelected as the President of the United States.
We wanted to know how widespread...
See what I'm saying? They get things in their minds, and even validated proof can prove otherwise, they'll still spew out endless lies to each other. That is a very, very dangerous state of mind to be in as a nation. And it doesn't matter if it's the United States nation. It doesn't matter if it's the Russian nation. It doesn't matter if it's the Chinese or the China nation or the African nation. It is a very, very dangerous state of mind to be in whenever somebody can explain to you the facts and you still ignore them.
His views are. So we drove deeper into Wilson County, where there's a COVID testing site at the fairgrounds. We met Quentin Smith, a cattle farmer who runs the agricultural center there and takes extra care to keep things sanitized during COVID.
Y'all will never go to a fairgrounds where anybody is traveling their bathrooms. I am. Come on in. I'm cautious about running out doing anything. I think everybody's excited about there being a vaccine, but I think it's going to be kind of everybody waiting around and watching the first responders and the nursing home folks, and if there's any reaction to it. Everything here's completely clean. Let me tell you what my daddy always told me. Son, don't never believe anything you hear and only half what you see.
I think it's entirely human to be a little skeptical and a little hesitant. After all, this is a new virus in the human population. This vaccine...
We're living in a planet or in a time right now to where you not only don't believe nothing you hear, but in some instances you don't believe nothing you see neither, because of the sophistication in how that they can manipulate things in digital form. Okay? But at the same time, you have to understand, you can't rule out everything. Whenever you say, don't believe nothing you hear, you have shut the door in understanding some of the things you hear may be accurate. You have to be smart enough to decipher the difference between what is real and what is not real, what is fake and what is not fake. You have to be able to decipher the difference, kind of like what I was talking about a while ago, as far as rightfully dividing the scriptures properly. You got people that stands in behind the pulpit that are in denial about certain things about the Bible, and because of it, they are preaching a message of heresy. That's the point that I'm trying to make throughout this. And it's not just Tennessee, it's the Bible Belt in general. I couldn't have landed in a harder, worse spot towards trying to demonstrate the message that God has given to me to give to the people. I could not have landed in a harsher, more resistant type people than I have right here in the Bible Belt area.
Uses new technology. It's been developed very rapidly, and that makes people cautious.
Based on our interviews and recent polling, Pastor Locke represents an outspoken minority. Surveys by the Pew Research Center found that Republicans are less likely than Democrats to see COVID as a major threat to public health, but also that there's a growing acceptance of the vaccine nationwide, including among Republicans. 60% of Americans say they'd take it, and nearly half of those who are reluctant say it's possible they'd get it after others do so. Dr. William Schaffner, who's been working on infectious disease at Vanderbilt University since the 60s, says that in order to overcome vaccine hesitancy, public health officials have to build trust.
You have to respect people. You have to respect where they're coming from, hear what they say, and then try to respond to their concerns.
You have to weigh out the facts of whether or not it's truthful or whether or not it's not truthful. Once you've made that determination, then you can either throw it out as it being fictionable, false, in other words, this is fake news, or you can start paying attention to it. Whenever the news weatherman tells you that inclement weather is approaching, you don't ignore, ordinarily, if you got any sense, the words that he or she is telling you about, especially if the inclement weather is right up on top of you or soon to be right up on top of you. If they're telling you that a tornado is coming, they're not telling you this just to get you all concerned and riled up about the weather. They are telling you this for your own benefit. It's the same way with the coronavirus. You got experts out there, doctors and nurses and scientists and expert people that will tell you these things for your own benefit. Now, if you are so hard-headed that you're not going to listen to them, then you take it upon yourself towards what the consequences are going to be. Just like if the weatherman tells you that a tornado's coming and you don't believe him and you remain dormant in your environment, and the next thing you know, here comes a tornado and it wipes your house completely off the map, you have no one to blame other than yourself, because you was fairly warned. The watchman on the wall done his job. Imminent danger was coming, is what he told you. And you did not believe him. Now, because you did not believe him, you suffer the consequences because you didn't believe the watchman on the wall that was telling you imminent danger, imminent danger, imminent danger. Kind of like that little robot back whenever it was on TV, Lost in Space, whenever it would approach a certain hole or a certain monster or a certain whatever, it would start repeating itself. Danger, 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 Mr. Rogers, or whoever, he'd call out the guy's name that was his assistant scientist. Danger, danger, danger. Well, if you don't believe the voice that's telling you that there's danger, from that moment on, you're taking it upon to yourself towards the consequences.
You know, we give shots to cows all the time, and you do get reactions to shots. So, you know, we have give a shot to an animal and it walk out there 20 feet out of the chute and drop dead. Everybody's going to respond differently.
After the first responders take it, when it's your turn, will you take the vaccine?
I probably will go on and take the vaccine.
How do you feel about the vaccine?
Anything new that has not been proven, I'm not sure I want to be the guinea pig, you know. And I really wish there was time for more testing, but there's not. And we're losing too many people too fast, so we have got to do what we can. I know it's become a political issue at times, but it shouldn't be.
It's a sickness, but it's not a pandemic, even though everybody's dying of the same symptoms. See what I'm saying? You got to be able to strain through the hypocrisy. And you got to be able to look at a lot of them that they mean well. They really do. God bless their souls. But a lot of them just are hard-headed. Hard-headed people that don't want to learn their lesson by listening to somebody. They have to learn it on their own. The bad thing about the coronavirus is this. If you are one of those that have to learn it by actually getting it or knowing somebody that has gotten it, you're taking a chance on receiving something that you may not recuperate from. It may actually send you sailing to the degree that you won't recover from it. That's what you're playing with here. You're playing with something that's very, very lethal. It would be the same thing if you was playing with TNT and you didn't know how to keep it cool and keep it in the right conditions to where it wouldn't become so abnormal or so unstable.
This is a health issue.
The approach to COVID has had substantial political overtones. People have attitudes about this, and it will not be easy to change those attitudes.
Are you going to tell the members of your congregation not to get the vaccine?
Members of my congregation can do if they want to, but they'll watch my videos and know that I'm not getting it.
So you expect them to model your behavior?
I expect them to use their Bible and use their brain.
Ellie Reeve, CNN, Wilson County, Tennessee.
Really enlightening, as always. And just because you don't know what a pandemic is, doesn't mean it's not happening.
Look, that exchange was stunning. And good on Ellie Reeve for keep on going back. It was a simple question. What do you think a pandemic is? And you refuse to answer. I will tell you that something that will be an issue over the next several months, even after Donald Trump leaves office on January 20th, is how much he will do to promote vaccination, right? He has taken credit for the development of the vaccine, and it happened during his administration. Is he going to go out there and tell people to take it? Will he take it himself? I know he's had it. Doesn't mean he shouldn't take the vaccine necessarily, and it will make a big difference. If he wants to get involved, this could save lives.
And other presidents have already agreed that on camera they will be vaccinated, and so President Trump could join them.
Yeah, but they don't have the juice that he does.
Agreed.
With these people. There's one person who might be able to convince that pastor to get vaccinated, and one person only, and it might be Donald Trump, if he cares.
We'll monitor his Twitter feed. We'd like to take a moment now to remember some of the more than 292,000 Americans lost to coronavirus. Flags are at half-staff in New Hampshire this morning after the death of House Speaker Dick Hinch. The 71-year-old Republican was just elected to the position last month. Governor Chris Sununu remembers him as a respected public servant. Hinch was 71. The Dayton, Ohio community is mourning the passing of longtime firefighter Jeff Guernsey. Lieutenant Guernsey started his career in 1990 with the Washington Township Fire Department after a stint in the Navy. He's survived by his wife, 4 children, and 2 grandchildren. His chief says the department lost a truly remarkable person. And members of a Fontana, California megachurch are grieving the loss of their pastor just days after he tested positive. Bob Bryant of the Water of Life Community Church was helping people right up until he got sick. Pastor Bryant leaves behind a wife and 4 adult children. He was 58 years old. We'll be right back.
It's really sad because some of these people that are going to wind up dying of this coronavirus, it could have been prevented. In other words, it didn't have to happen. But because of them being hard-headed and chancing the things that they do in life, let me just re-quote the Bible for you real quick. The Bible in Scriptures teaches that if we drink of anything deadly or harmful, it shall not hurt us, because God the Father will protect us. There was another incident that happened in the book of Acts pertaining to, I believe it was Paul, that got bitten by a scorpion, that he throwed the scorpion off after being bitten. At first, the people around the campsite waited for his death. Once the people realized that this man obviously either didn't get bit or God was protecting him, they started bowing down to him like he was some sort of a god. They went from one extreme to another. And that's the way the human characteristics on the planet usually always reacts to. They'll go with one reaction just as quickly as they will another. One extreme to the other, pertaining to whatever that they're debating or whatever that they're arguing about. And it's really it's really a lethal deadly disease, that if you're the wrong person and you're challenging this disease, the disease may very well win over your hard-headedness. In other words, this is one of the things that you don't need to challenge pertaining to the coronavirus. And yes, once more, it is a pandemic.
Republican Senator Mike Lee facing criticism this morning after blocking bipartisan legislation that will create Smithsonian museums dedicated to the history of women and Latino Americans. Senator Lee says creating these separate but equal museums based on identity would further divide.
flu shot clinics on site at a nursing home. They'll be doing something similar for coronavirus. And it's estimated that that could take about 2 months or so, maybe 3 months, to roll that out to all of the nursing homes. And then beyond that, trying to get the general population vaccinated, that won't be really until April or May. In the interim, you have quite a number of people. You have the critical infrastructure workers. After that, you're looking at
to train students on becoming commercial pilots for the airline industry.
With fewer lines. See results at boat.
Rich, there's nothing wrong with being rich, but if your heart
was woman block. When I see somebody block someone, honest.
Find great grandma's recipe.
Less pain immediately following injection. Ask your doctor about Humira citrate.
Grandpa, can you tell me the story again?
What? Before they finish.
They're talking!
Never. If you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, are prone to infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores, don't start Humira if you have an infection. Ask your doctor about Humira.
Safe to do so.
Well, I think
warm, soothing pressure therapy
is going on here, and we need to make sure that we understand.
Dare she, trying to get the sweetest deal she possibly could to bail out the pension plans in bankrupt cities like New York and states like New York? How can she not understand that what she has done is a horrible, horrible misdeed? This is malfeasance of the worst sort. She could have had a $1.8 trillion deal back in October. Yep. She held out for a $2.3 trillion deal. Now she's getting less than half, if she's lucky, and people have suffered as a result. I think that is really, really scandalous. And anyone who says that she's like a historic, Speaker of the House has to understand that this was a I'm sure that this was a structural failure, that she and her Democratic colleagues let the ball drop because they wanted to hurt Donald Trump in the election. There's absolutely no justification, no excuse for it. It was terrible, and people have suffered as a result. But nowhere to direct your anger. It's not at the local, the aldermen. It's at Washington, particularly at the Democrats in Washington.
We are getting so much closer, and 3,000 people died yesterday, and they're projecting 3,000 more today. That's more than we lost on 9/11. So, Geraldo, speaking of Nancy Pelosi, let's see, in 2015, decided Eric Swalwell. I just heard about him from the FBI that apparently he was the target of a Chinese influence campaign. But nonetheless, I'm going to put him on the Intel Committee where they splay.
Why did we not know any of this? Why wasn't Congress given that information so we could conduct investigations and hearings? All of this bespeaks to what the American people are saying, which is we don't trust Congress, we don't trust the FBI anymore, we don't trust the Department of Justice anymore, and they don't trust the federal courts. Those are our institutions that are...
People are like me. They're realizing by putting your trust in the system has been broken. We are right now $27 trillion in a national hole, a national debt. Trillion. We owe more money than what we are actually worth. How our credit rating is remaining the same is still mind-boggling to me. But whenever you have so many different opinions, that is so crucial. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have investigated Mr. Hunter pertaining to the Biden Foundation or the Biden whatever it was at that time. But the fact of the matter is, we're nitpicking over so many smaller things that now the bigger things are consuming us. And if we don't wake up to the snares of this, it is going to be our own Achilles heel pertaining to the fall of the empire here in America. And it's so sad. It is so, so sad whenever you have a country that had the potential but throwed it away.
Be protecting us, and they simply don't trust them.
It's even worse than that. I mean, I was talking to some of your colleagues, and they told me how many hours that they had scheduled for investigatory hearings. The hearings in the Senate, the hearings in the House in terms of investigating Donald Trump, they all missed the bigger threat, which is China. House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy is now calling for Congressman Eric Swalwell to be removed from the Intel Committee for his ties to a suspected Chinese spy. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is coming to the aid of her fellow Californian, saying that she has no concerns about him. How do you have no concerns about somebody who's been peddling Russia hoax for 4 years now, every day on TV, saying that Donald Trump colluded with Russia, when in fact you are literally sleeping with the Communist Party? You're dating a Chinese spy and she's raising money for you. I mean, what?
See, you got all this stuff that's now coming to the forefront, including the argument about the election, including the argument about the authenticity of the coronavirus. And anytime you have an environment like this, it becomes extremely toxic to the point that there should be red bells and red flags raising everywhere. Danger, danger, danger. Just like that little robot on Lost in Space. Danger, danger, danger. Because we cannot unify. And if we can not unify, what does the Bible say about an ununified house? It says it will not stand.
What is going on?
Well, it's outrageous. I mean, think about everything you just said about Swalwell, but see, it gets actually exacerbated after Mueller comes in and says, hey, guess what? There's nothing there. Swalwell said, I still think there's something there. There's a problem. He needs to be gone. He needs to be gone.
Unbelievable. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much. We'll keep talking about it. We'll keep putting a spotlight on it as well. Congressman Andy Biggs, be sure to check out my new book.
See, we'll keep looking at each other and saying, unbelievable. We'll listen to this particular scenario and say, unbelievable. We'll listen to something that Donald Trump's done. Unbelievable. Or something that the Congress is fixing to vote on or do. Unbelievable. We'll keep telling ourselves, unbelievable, unbelievable, unbelievable. Whenever these things are believable, we should be believing these things that are happening right now. There does come a time to where it's necessary to cry and to scream out fire, fire, fire in the middle of a theater, especially if there is a fire. And I'm just using that type of scenario because of what these people up here in Martin, Tennessee, in Weakley County, tried to charge me for in 2005 towards falsifying files. They walk around sniggering, laughing. They think that they got away with something. Just like the people in Oklahoma that planted a bomb in the back end of my truck. Those same people that done that are still walking around sharpening their nails, saying, wow, what kind of good job that we done towards making that guy look like an idiot. And the whole time it wasn't me that they was making me out to look like an idiot. It was them. Because they had no validated reason of doing that to my property. Just like the people up in Kentucky that put my life through hell over 2 telephone calls. Over them trying to charge me pertaining to me having something to do with the Kentucky Dam up here, towards somebody going to put explosives on the Kentucky Dam, simply because I told them that God had told me that there was going to be electrical disturbances to come. You don't think that those same people that are giggling and laughing and having a good time because of all those occurrences that happened, that one day they're going to give an account for what that they've done? Sure they will. Just like the bunch up here in Weakley County. Last night, yesterday evening, I bumped into Judge Pence, the very one that validated towards making sure that I had a felony on my record. And whenever I seen him in front of the drugstore, at first he didn't recognize me, and he approached me like he would approach any other good Samaritan citizen. Hey, how you doing? We bumped hands, bumped fingers together, bumping fists together. And then once I explained to him who I was, I'm Dennis Jackson. Oh, man, he started backing up. And the next thing you know, he got within 20 foot of me. And I looked at him and I said, well, I still got that felony. And he clammed up and wouldn't say nothing. And he stood there at the doorway and he wanted to sneak out, but at the same time, he didn't want to be totally disrespectful. And I looked at him and I said, well, I guess you don't discuss your business in the public unless you have the robe on. He shook his head. Yeah, that's correct. And then turned around. I see you, bye. And went out the store. I have never seen so much hypocrisy in my entire life coming from various law enforcement people, judges, people that don't understand their own positions, people that don't understand, passing out felonies like passing out brownies to a group of people, and they don't think that they're going to give an account for this one day. Out of all the close scrapes that I've ever had, it wasn't until I come back in 2014 and my brother and I was concerned about 3 little children across the road that wound up costing me a felony. They put a felony onto my life because we was concerned about the influence and the benefit, the well-being of 3 little children. Mixed up. The whole bunch is mixed up. We're in a very, very toxic atmosphere right now. And if the people hadn't seen that and are awakened to that, they soon will be. Coming near a neighborhood near you. Good luck to all of us. Once more, shalom.